Hello. Hi, Alex. Hi, Manu.
Hey, Alex. Hey, Tiomir. Great.
I hope a lot of people show up to hear Alex.
Again, Alex, I don't know if you've seen my message on the old Argo Slack. Sorry, I messed up the schedule. Yeah, we canceled last week's because of KubeCon, and we had a reminder somewhere down in our agenda that vanished. So yeah. Typically, the week after KubeCon, we get more people if they have enjoyed our office hours.
Yeah, I haven't really. I've actually logged out of the Argo Slack channel now, so I don't get that.
Okay, yeah. Last week I was out of office when Theo mentioned that he was in contact with you about the presentation. So it was that we 2 weeks earlier, so 3 weeks ago, we had it planned to be presented, and then we kind of removed it from the agenda because it wasn't happening. But just the week before KubeCon, we decided, because of KubeCon, to not have the meeting. So which dropped your agenda item. I mean, it wasn't no longer on the agenda. That's why it got messed up. So sorry for that. So hi, Flavio. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Is this your first time on the call?
It is the first time on the call, yes.
And do you want to be associated with any company?
I work for Dell.
Oh, great. Welcome.
Yeah. So if you want, I can do a quick introduction of myself. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, while I'm typing the other names. Sure, go ahead. Thanks.
Sure. So we are not doing anything specific with serverless functions today, but I'm interested in it. Part of it is because I work on this project called Pravega. So Pravega is one of the projects that has been recently accepted for sandboxing in CNCF. And I am getting familiar with the various working groups and topics. And again, serverless functions is an area that interests me, and we might invest in that in the future. So I decided, just out of curiosity, to sit and see what's going on.
Hey, great. Great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you.
So let me check. Ekam, I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah. Do you want to be, since this is your first time on the call, do you want to be associated with any company?
Yes, I am associated with Xenon.
Excuse me, could you please repeat that? I had trouble understanding you.
I said I'm associated with Xenon Stack.
Could you post that in the chat maybe? I'm sorry, maybe it's just me or my headset.
It's XENZON.
Z-O-N. Like that?
I'll type it on the chat.
Okay, Yanagan, or Janagan, can you hear me? Maybe not. Let's try him later. Kevin, nice to see you on the call, and thanks for opening these issues. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
How are you?
I think for you, it's also the first time on our community meeting. Do you want to be associated with any company?
Oh, I've been here before, but yeah.
Oh, right. I should have you in my logs then. Okay, sorry for that. Then Lucas.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good, thanks. I'm actually a student, so can't be associated with any company.
Okay, but, that's great.
Yeah.
He's one of our bug bash guys. Thanks for joining. He contributed to our project during last.
Cool. Hi. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, there was a lot going on during KubeCon on the bug bash on the Java SDK. So let me try Janagan again. Or Janagan, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry, I was my audio was not working. So actually, I also like joined the bug bash and just wanted like kind of interested in the project, so that's why I joined the call.
Hey, welcome. Bug bash
Welcome.
rocks.
And thanks, Ekam, for posting it in the chat, the company. Okay, then let me get a quick check on the list. Yeah, I think that's it. I have Charles. Okay, then let's get started. So welcome, everybody. This is for, since we have a lot of first timers, this is our weekly community call. It always has the same recurring kind of agenda. So we start with community questions. Are there any questions you would like to ask to the community? Any general things? No? Then let's get started. So presentations, from time to time, we do have presentations on our community call. And this week, I'm happy to welcome Alex Collins. He's a maintainer of Argo. You should know it, CNCF workflow project started with Argo CD and has now expanded to Argo events, more generic Argo workflows, and is currently thinking about data pipelines, if I got that correctly. And this is what I think the presentation will be about. Okay, Alex, do you want to start right away?
Sure. Let me just 1 second. I want to load up my presentation, but Google is not working today.
Oh, and I think I have to stop sharing. So
just keep
let me
saying
quickly
unable to
get-
load your view. So let me just try and switch around. Google Drive is broken. That's not something I expected. Give me 1 second. Google Drive is actually broken today, so not perfect timing.
Wow, that's a big one. Then
can I share my screen? I can't share while you're sharing, apparently.
Yes, so I'll stop sharing.
Just so hopefully this presentation will be around 10 minutes. I'm going to talk a bit about a new project called Argo Dataflow, which is currently in a kind of a POC stage. Just a little bit about me. My name is Alex. I'm originally from the UK, from London. I moved to California 2 and a bit years ago now. My interests are cycling, coffee, beer, and music. So my kind of ideal day would be start with coffee, ride to a bar where a band is playing some good music. That's my girlfriend in the bottom left-hand side there. So what is Argo Dataflow? So Argo Dataflow is intended as cloud native, so Kubernetes, a language agnostic platform for executing large data processing jobs, pipelines, typically composed of a number of steps which process data, and those steps are typically often small and homogenic, so similar. It kind of sits somewhere between a stream processing platform like Fink or Apache Beam and a data batch processing platform like Argo Workflows. It kind of sits between the two of those. Its typical use cases are intended for things like clickstream analytics. We're doing a lot of work on anomaly detection. For those who are not familiar with anomaly detection, that is analyzing metrics from application logs and so forth, and determining if that application is behaving incorrectly. Fraud detection, obviously that fits within common real-time data processing, and an operational stroke IoT analytics. So a lot of these use cases are kind of real-time use cases. I'm looking at data that's coming in now, and I don't necessarily need accuracy. That's not the most important thing for me. But what I do need is responsiveness. Here is an example of a pipeline defined for data flow. So we're cloud native. So obviously the common denominator here is YAML. Everything's defined in YAML, or well, structured document format. So JSON as well. And this, I'm trying to see if I can, yeah, can you see my pointer? I can't tell.
Yes.
I can't, no. What I've just done there is click on it. So I can point to it. Basically, this defines a data pipeline called example. That's got 2 steps. The first step is reads from a Kafka topic named pets. Oops, I didn't press anything there. And then it filters out objects of type cat and writes them to a NATS topic called a NATS subject. And a subject in NATS is basically the same thing as a topic in Kafka. I find there's very little difference between the two of them, except that the NATS topics are a bit more lightweight. Kafka topics are pretty heavyweight. So it basically filters any message from that pets topic, writes it to a NATS subject called cats, and then the second step in this effectively prepends, maps each of those cats to say hello, the name of the cat, and then writes that out to a Kafka topic called hello to cats. And that scales using replicas. So we run 2 replicas of that. This is a very basic data processing pipeline, but it shows 2 very basic data processing operations, which are obviously filter and map, but there are other operations ones. And really, these are just kind of built-in ones for convenience. The main ones actually run, you can write your own data processor to process your data. And then that kind of a graphical representation here. And this is a more complicated one. So I'm reading from reading a load of pets from some kind of data source, writing them out to a subject or a topic, and then I'm splitting that by filtering it into cats and dogs, and then performing different kind of processing based on whether it's a cat or a dog, and finally I output that to an output topic there. So that's that in kind of summary. So let's have a little look at an example. I'm going to hope this is going to run. So here's a very basic hello pipeline. In this one, I'm reading from a cron schedule. So the source is actually cron schedule, and the output's a log sync. And these are kind of, the log one's kind of convenience. It's kind of convenient to log things, and you see that a lot in data processing pipelines. The final step is often to log it as well as doing something else with it. And the cron is useful because it doesn't require you to use Kafka or all that. So it's quite difficult. And then we just have a graphical representation of that, and you can see that I've processed and 151 messages have been processed, 152. There's a sample of what the message is there on the thing, so you can see what's recently going on, and then you can see that's written to a log. And if I click on the log, I click on this, then I can actually see in my logs information about the messages that are going through the system. You can just see they're being logged there. That's a very simple one. So let's look at a slightly more complicated one. I hope this will work. This didn't work earlier. So this is a 2-node pipeline. So look on this. This reads from a Kafka topic, performs some processing by writing to a NAT streaming subject, and then writes it back out to the topic here. Now, this pattern we use for encryption and decryption. So it allows us to read encrypted messages from a particular topic and write them out to another one there. So that's very straightforward. But what if I want to, I don't have a very busy topic, or I need to scale up my topic? We can define a number of replicas for a particular step within the pipeline. And again, we're looking at a very simple cat step here. Cat just reads and writes the same message. It's basically an identity map operation. But with this one, I can define a manage fields, a minimum and maximum number of replicas for that particular step, and a ratio. And a ratio is used to define how many replicas we should run based on the number of pending messages. So for each 1,000 pending messages, I'm going to run replica. And if there's less than 1,000, then I'm actually going to run 0. So this allows me to scale my data processing pipelines to this guy. This one's actually scaled to 0. Typically, they scale up at some point. I can't remember what the configuration is now. I may have changed this configuration. That'll scale up occasionally just to see how many messages there are on that topic. And then if there aren't messages, it'll scale back down to 0. It basically allows you to have scale to 0 data processing pipelines out of the box with no special configuration required. Another thing you probably want to do, and this will seem, oh, here we go. I mentioned it would scale up, didn't I? It'll scale, is to read data from a particular language and actually embed the language in there. So this has a concept of a handler now, and let me show you the YAML actually rather than that. So this is an example of Go, and there's examples of other ones. Basically allows you to inline your code into the YAML here and perform some operations, and it uses a runtime to execute those. And a runtime is effectively every step is executed using a Docker image, and there's a Golang Docker image that you can run. There's also a Python and a Java one as well you can use. I'm going to show you most of the YAMLs for this because they tend to take a bit longer to start up. Another one is a Git one. So these are really aimed at developers who are working in pre-production environments. So this one here will check out this code from this path, from this repository on this particular branch, its main branch, and then it will switch into this path, and then it will run the code that it finds in that path. And that allows you to basically check your code into GitHub. You don't have to build a Docker image, which is obviously quite expensive and time consuming. Actually, it can just use the same base image and effectively does a kind of a Docker build with inside the image. And you can provide an entry point, which tells you how to run that image. Are there any questions before I head? Anybody that wants to ask anything about these? Okay, I will continue. This allows you to do run to completion or terminating or non-terminating pipelines, I guess you could call them. So this example is a pipeline. I'll run this one. Oh, if it loads. I'm having bad internet. Let me disconnect from the corporate VPN. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Actually, my head is exploding with questions right now. No, it's really nice. I know Argo for it being able to embed the steps as container runs. So these are what they are. So when you started showing the simple filter, it's also something that would be run in a container, right?
Yeah, the kind of design of this is the only on a cloud native system, the only thing that you have for doing processing is a pod. Yeah, that's basically your function unit. Is one function is one pod. So everything boils down to a pod ultimately, including kind of the built-in functions. They're really just wrappers around an existing image that runs those functions. It's a bit frustrating. That GitHub now appears to be down.
The events or the messages that you're processing, would you channel them through standard in, standard out? As the base image, it doesn't have any specific Kafka connectors or NATS connectors.
No, that's quite right. So that's the pod itself, or the container. The architecture is there are always 3 containers in a pod. There's an init container which does some setup. There's a sidecar container who is responsible for reading and writing from the sources into the sinks. And that is the bit that understands about Kafka and about NATS and about other things. And then it uses either HTTP or a FIFO to communicate. I'm going to switch to I don't know. I think Git is, they've annoyed another nation state again recently by hosting software they don't like. So maybe it's under attack again. So this is the pipeline I wanted to show you. This is basically a pipeline that runs to completion. And this is just an image that exits 0.
Okay, so every time it completes or exits 0, it will stop the pipeline execution, and then depending on what you have as input, you would scale again. Have we lost you? And are you still connected to the call?
Yes, you are. I think we have lost Alex.
Yeah. Yeah, he just vanished from my list too. Now we can't give him the feedback he deserves for putting up that presentation. So I noticed it was really proof of concept, very early work, and I appreciate much that Alex shares this with us. I think it's still in the making as an extension to the Argo workflow, Argo events, Argo CD toolkit. Yeah. I'll give it a little countdown, and then maybe we can move on, but we can jump back anytime that Alex comes back into the call. No? Okay, then let's start with our PR triage, because we have a couple of PRs that I think we can finally close. So the subflow action version property, I actually checked the comments, and it seems that we have concluded on that. So final resolve of this is that we have spec version defining the specification version of our workflow definition language. No version on the workflow. That is the workflow version, like dev version, and so on. That would be defined either with the runtime or in metadata, any annotation data that one may always add to a workflow definition, but we don't have a specific version property. And that is the state, I believe, for now. So we have +1's agreement from everybody.
Well, I think I misunderstood something. I think we do have version for both workflow and subflow ref, just no default.
Oh, okay. Maybe then I skimmed it too quickly. Timia, can you confirm? I think
What was the question? Yeah, there is a version on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There is no
Yeah,
defaults. Okay.
The only thing I want to say here is for the SDK guys, this is a pain in the behind for us. Ricardo is missing because now what we've established is the spec version has to be have a value, so it's not a default parameter. So we're gonna have to deal with every release to update everything. So that's the only pain part about this. So our releases are gonna have to deal with updating all of our tests, JSON and YAMLs, just FYI.
Yeah, that's for the examples as well, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's for like Antonio and Charles and Ricardo, who's probably still PTO, probably.
Don't the SDKs already target a specific version of the spec? I mean, they're targeting whatever release to match, right? So if you release a 0.7, they release a 0.7 compatible SDK, right?
That's true. However, we probably have 20 examples in our example specification, but each of the SDKs probably have 100 or even more JSON and YAMLs for tests, right? And on those, we want to make sure that when we release, let's say as SDK goes to 0.7, that we update all those as well. It's probably just a search and replace type of thing, but yeah, it's just in tests and for testing and edge cases, we have feature tests, validation testing, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, because we don't want to like release a SDK that says we compatible with 07 and all our test JSON and YAML say spec version 06, right?
Yeah, makes sense. And also they all get updated for whatever new fields are in the new version of the spec, right?
Yeah. But yeah, just for spec version, that's something new that wasn't there before. So yeah. And same for the VS Code plugin, but whatever. Now, one thing that we're not checking though is like even, you can write spec version 10.5 and we're not gonna, we have no means of dealing with this, right? So this just means that the spec version is populated as a parameter, or meaning has a value.
Yep. Okay. Anyways, I'd put it up now since it seemed to be resolved from the comments and the +1s. Put it up to merge. Does anybody have or want to object to merging this? No. Okay. Thanks. It's approved. Sorry. Okay. The next one is I flipped the order here. Sorry. Maybe we can talk about the event data filter first, if that's okay, because I think that's also it has come to a conclusion after all these comments. So I gave it an LGTM from what I've seen from the changes that are in now. And last time, 2 weeks ago, we discussed that we wanted to have the unwrap payload or some parameter that says whether or not the event should be unwrapped or not, and that the default should be that it is unwrapped, so that we are somewhat backwards compatible with the existing specification. But now it's also possible to specify unwrapped payload to false, and then have access to the entire event, including cloud event attributes, and yeah, cloud event attributes basically. Okay, any objection to merging this now?
Did we approve it? Or
So for my side, I think it has so what's the, or if we need to talk about this more, please.
we
No.
can talk about it, but I think just from the number of people who said that this probably isn't a good idea is probably something we should think about or have some sort of voting, because as we grow, these types of issues are going to become more and more where somebody wants to do something or other, and some people say yes or no. And I think this is a perfect issue where we can just take a vote on it, or what we want to do. Maybe not in this meeting, but maybe some other, I don't care, but
Yeah, I mean, the default
have-
behavior right now, without any of the like all existing workflow definitions, they behave exactly as they should and as they did, right? The only change is in the naming of that, where we place the event payload, and that is the two-state data instead of results, right?
well,
And I
it's a
think this,
huge change that we enforce. First of all, transition to JSON for every cloud event. We didn't even discuss that, because this forces us to only be able to consume JSON-based cloud event format.
That's not
And
true.
no,
no,
We've established that they can be transformed to JSON. We can accept any wire format that they describe for cloud events, and that those can be, translated to JSON.
but who
So it
translates
doesn't,
that?
the runtime.
But you having an expression in basically that it's a JSON-based expression, you're enforcing every runtime to do this, right?
But that doesn't require them to accept everything in JSON.
no,
But
the
that's what
payload
I'm
can
saying.
still
It's
be,
like, in order to use the expression language to consume anything other than the payload, you have, the runtime will have to convert this cloud event into a JSON format, right?
Sure. Which is
Yeah.
didn't seem like what you were saying, but yes, they
Sorry
would
about
have to express it as JSON,
Yeah,
and that's
And how would they do that? Like
Yeah.
take the encoded base64 payload, for example. How am I supposed runtime wise to handle those
well, hang on.
unstructured
That's
events,
no,
right?
there are two
That's-
different things here. One is the cloud event envelope, and the envelope
Yeah.
has attributes to it. For example, a subject,
Yeah, about
it can have a timestamp. So this is the cloud events envelope, not the payload.
okay, sorry.
And what the SDKs now have to do in order to apply the this JQ expression on a cloud event that has not been unwrapped, they need to provide this as a JSON encoded envelope. That's without independent from whatever the payload is. The payload can still be binary base64 encoded, which is a base64 string. And so in case it says unwrap, note it doesn't say decode payload. So it's not decoding the payload field with the what is it? I think it's called data content type.
Yep.
So it's not using the it's not enforcing this. It only says unwrap. What unwrap payload means, it provides the payload field of a cloud events envelope, that is the content of it. Or is it payload or data? I think it should be data, but okay.
It's data. Yeah, maybe that should be
It's
called
okay.
unwrap data.
Unwrap payload data, tomato. So when unwrap payload is set to true, this is how it would behave, how it always has behaved. What Tiromir points to is that when you're using an SDK, let's say in a Go or .NET implementation, you're using the Go or .NET SDK of cloud events, then I think you get a cloud event object, like a struct or a class instance where you can access the payload and give it to the workflow. Now, if you get the cloud event and the workflow definition says that you should not unwrap it, then you need to provide the attributes like the timestamp, the topic, a subject, the type field, and so on, everything that is in the cloud events envelope. You need to encode this as JSON so that you can apply such a JQ expression on it, which is per SDK, a Cloud Events SDK, not a problem because there is a common format. I don't think that there is, so it's in the standard, and I would think that the cloud, because it has the Cloud Events SDK, it needs to have encodings to transmit the cloud event via JSON encoded transport, for example, in the HTTP transport, which is one of the transports that all Cloud Events SDKs support. So there has to be an encoding for JSON. I'm not sure about the overhead, but yeah. So
what are we unwrapping?
The Cloud Events envelope.
The Cloud Events envelope. Okay, right. I don't know. Yeah, I really think that we should have a vote on this. We do have a couple people on there that disagreed with this still. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm sure we don't have to everybody agree on everything, but in some ways, or this will happen again tomorrow or next week or week after, and we need some sort of formalization of what we want to do about it, because I don't like, we've kind of come to a point where we can't just take any issue and somebody disagreeing with something and leaving it hanging without some sort of formal thing. I honestly, I could agree with this. I don't know why a DSL would need to tell the runtime how to treat events. From my point of view, the only thing that I care about in a DSL is to say what's my source and the type of the event. And we already enforced the JSON structure of the payload. This to me is a little bit on the technical side, right? But I do see a need for it, as of course it's requested. So, but let's kind of like figure this out, because I hate to like have some sort of put this in and then later on remove it like we've done with other things, or change it, which is fine too, but I hate to like just jump over people who said that this might not be the best idea to do, or that there are other ways of doing it. You know what I mean? So maybe, can we maybe work offline about establishing some sort of voting thing in cases of issues where we just can't come to some sort of larger agreement on things? That would really help. No, yes, no.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, we've had it for a while.
Seems like we
And
voted
we
on it
kept
twice
discussing
already.
back and forth. Yeah, same feeling, but I'm for including it, because otherwise, how would you access the subject of a cloud event when you subscribe to its type? And then you have attributes, maybe even attribute extensions like the a correlation ID that you need to do tracing, which you want to pass on maybe to a function call. So whichever it is, I see the need for it.
I'd also like to point out, I think, Charles, you might have had a misconception about something here. One thing I'd like to point out is that data content type, which was mentioned earlier, is a thing that says in the CNCF Cloud Events spec that basically allows events to have payloads of other types. So runtimes can be, or cloud events can have YAML as their data, as far as I understand. They can have base64 encoded binary as their data, right? And so runtimes, the thing you were concerned about transforming, say, a YAML payload to JSON has nothing to do with this change, but it's something that runtimes actually already need to support if they're truly supporting cloud events, from what I understand.
Yeah, I got that. I was indeed having a misconception here. No problem.
Yeah.
For me, anyways, it's just a nomenclature issue, right? Naming convention issue rather than anything. So I don't see any blocking points on my end, anyways.
Cool. So are there, like, Tio, who's the other party that's objecting then? Like, can we talk to them?
Yeah, definitely. Mache was saying stuff, and well, I mean, he's not really, I don't know, joining the meeting, so his vote is more or less, it is what it is, but I still would like to think about it. Yeah,
I mean, one thing I'd like to say is that I think there are use cases that keep getting written off here. The use case I brought up that Manuel just mentioned is, having access to the ID and other fields on the envelope. Every time I brought it up, they've been written off as not being use cases because, I think people seem to presume that in all cases, consumers of events own the source of the events as well, which I don't think is true. And I think that's what's the disconnect here, is that it seems like there's people involved in this conversation that write off any situation where or are perhaps used to the case where they own both the source and the destination of events, which is not true for all users of I think this workflow language.
And for cloud events too.
Everybody has their opinions. No, wait a second. I think I would like to address this honestly, in a nice way. We have added stuff to this workflow language that were very questionable just because of some of the requests that were made before. So what's part of this language or not, I think it's determined by the community completely. And if anybody has any issues with it, we should just give it a chance to discuss it. And I agree that this particular change, I honestly, personally don't think it's kind of something, I think in the end, it will bring us more issues than it will help us out as far as the DSL goes. Being more restrictive in this case, in my opinion, brings us value that we as a DSL don't have to manipulate the implementation on the runtime or enforce some extra checking that is needed, especially for translating things to JSON when we're dealing with real life events and a large event processing applications. It's not something trivial.
But runtimes have to do that now, right? They can get an event with a payload of YAML, and this workflow language expects the data to be JSON, correct?
Yes, because the data is in JSON upfront. Yes.
No, not necessarily. Cloud Events supports other content types.
But what does that have to do with the actual message? I mean, okay, I guess we can take this offline. I don't want to discuss, kind of take our time, but all right, fine. We can add it for approve. I'll look over it again and ask the other guys who have commented on it to take another look. And if they have to see, if not, we'll go ahead with it. I got to look at all the expressions again as well to make sure. The unwrap thing is kind of weird to me, honestly, because what are we unwrapping? You know, okay, fine, but
the cloud
maybe we'll
events
just
envelope.
enforce JSON format all the time. If we do this, maybe it's even simpler to just say, okay, JSON it is. So that way we don't have some confusing flag to people. who
I don't get the
what JSON.
Yeah, I don't.
Huh?
That seems unrelated, right?
About what?
I don't understand what enforcing JSON has to do. You're talking about enforcing JSON for the payload or the whole event?
But isn't that what the unwrap flag is doing? Kind of, do you want just the payload to be included or not?
The default right now is to only include the payload, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but with that flag, basically it says the whole event should be in JSON format, right?
No, it's whether you get a pointer directly to the data field in your cloud event, or whether you get a pointer to the entire envelope, including the source, type, subject, timestamp, and potential extension attributes of a cloud event envelope.
Okay.
Yeah, and anyways, if I'm not mistaken, the only actual format for the envelope itself is cloud events plus JSON, right?
Yes.
So anyways, cloud events is basically natively JSON. So it's not really a concern in that case, in my opinion.
Okay, well, if that's
agree.
not, then we're good.
Okay, then just as a reminder, if we come to a formal vote, and like in this case, I still hope to avert it and to clarify any misunderstandings. But if it actually comes to a vote, then I think what we have established in terms of governance is the same as in cloud events. So participation by companies. So it wouldn't be fair if, let's say, one company had 10 regular attendees and then would all vote in favor of the intentions of a single company. So what we do instead is have a per company attendance. I'm not that strict that I would exclude anybody who has missed a meeting, but I'd look at the attendee list and see, look at the regulars, and then I'd cast the formal vote among those that regularly are attending, plus, of course, people involved in the PI if that has been triggered externally. But for this, so Timian, can we
Go ahead.
approve it?
Yeah, it seems to me, yeah, I will just ping the community guy again, just to maybe give final things. If not, we'll go ahead and we can set it for approved.
Great, thanks. And we have a new addition. So let's see. Is there also
Sorry, one thing.
Yeah. So
I just noticed that it said below the bullet point default should be the entire event, but I think that was vetoed in the last meeting when this was approved. So the default is not the whole event. It's just the payload, like the current behavior. Just wanted to clear that up. Emmanuel, you're muted.
oh yes, thank you. Sorry. Thanks much. Yeah, that was a leftover from an earlier discussion state. So yes, thank you. Thanks. Okay. Do we have Nathan on the call? No, I guess not. But we can discuss it anyways. So GraphQL support. We do have for function calls a REST gRPC, or REST being the open API, RPC being gRPC actually, and one more. Could you please remind me what it was? So, anyways, we get one more, and that is a GraphQL definition, which adds. Oh yeah, of course, expression. That was the last one I forgot about. We can run just expression language functions that are embedded. And GraphQL is the new addition. So in GraphQL, people can define interfaces to query and mutate data. Query interfaces are very convenient because you can design actually what the response should look like. For those who haven't played with GraphQL yet, you can select the fields of the resource that you are querying in the request. And this makes it also very convenient to use in workflow language, because in the query, so this is an example GraphQL, and I think the example is a little bit lower, this one. Retrieves, okay, this one retrieves a single pet with the ID, and this is the selection set. So you can say that from the pet that you are querying with the ID 42, you only want the ID, the name, and the favorite treat with its favorite treat ID, while the schema defines what the data structure is. So you have pets, and they can have favorite treat with its ID. I think this is pretty easy to understand. And then the mutation I already mentioned is where you can modify records, and they require specific input. So this is GraphQL, and from what I saw, I think I approved it also earlier. This looks pretty good. It has already been long enough in our repository. So typically we wouldn't, I wouldn't put up anything that has been added on the day of the community call or the weekend before, but it should be in 3 days or longer, so people have time to look at it. So that's why I'm putting it up for vote. Do people want more time to review this, or are we good approving it? So Tiomir, I know you have already reviewed it, thanks, and it has led to a couple of improvements. We don't have Ricardo on the call. Let me pick on Jorgen. What do you think? Do you think GraphQL is a good addition, or do you think that this, do you know about any conflicts this would have?
It looks like a good change to me. I have not used GraphQL. This was my first introduction to it. So I don't know how I would use it with workflows personally, but it looks like it's well described, and looks like it's a fit with the other types of functions that we support. So
yep, thanks.
I didn't have any concerns.
Okay, anybody else? No? Then thank you. And of course, we can always add to it. So in case it's underspecified, or there's text missing, or people come up with improvements. But thanks for having this approved so we can merge it. It's also our peer triage. Alex hasn't come back, and we have 10 minutes until the top of the hour. So we have a couple of new issues, and I wouldn't know with which to start. So I just go through the order, if that's okay, in which they came in, the numbers. But if anybody wants to urgently discuss their PR, please speak up. So first one, improve timeouts. Tiomir, could you quickly present it to everyone?
Yeah, I mean, currently our timeout settings are pretty weak as far as things like the execution time of each action and stuff like that. So this is just to add a bunch more different timeouts. on different levels. So one of them is execution time of the state. You can define a max execution time or on single actions as well. And then on parallel state branches. And then in addition, we should improve our current handling of timeouts and errors and things like that. So that's it. Yeah,
Okay, thanks. Yeah, sounds reasonable.
To work on it yet, but I will.
We've already had a couple of discussion points.
Yeah, nothing crazy.
Okay, okay, nothing controversial.
No.
Okay, so that's cool. The next one, supporting translating. Oh, we don't have him on the call, I'm afraid. Tao J from VMware, spelled WM, where, nice. He mentioned that he would like to have some support to translate our workflow description language into ASL and or conductor DSL, and there has been a discussion going on. I mean, it has support also for seen from Evan. I remember Evan to be with Google. I'm not sure if he's still, and that maybe people have investment with conductor. Same applies for Argo and any other workflow engine. So I'm not sure what to make of it. But this is an interesting aspect. I think we had a discussion during our primer design discussion with Falco as well, if it was possible to maybe translate it into different workflow languages. And of course, Falco would have been a proponent of BPMN, which adds more to the list. So far, we're only doing comparisons, but if anybody wants to pick up on this, then this would be the issue.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, Antonio, we might look into this for your SDK, because that would probably be the simplest to start with.
Okay, I will have a look.
Yeah, at least try ASL.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll talk about it. But yeah, I do think that this is important because a lot of people see our specification as kind of like really like a DSL that they can move around different runtimes on. And yeah, it's not the first time we hear this too, that people want us to, you know, because a lot of the runtimes do have specific support for like a specific DSL. And by using serverless workflow, they will be able to move easily, you know, to meet up with their non-functional requirements and be able to run on different runtimes. So let's look at it. I don't know, you know, it's probably a ton of work and need community help. And hopefully these guys can help too, but I don't know. We'll try it at least, I guess.
True. Okay, cool. Then let's get to the next one, because also we have Kevin on the call, and I wanted to get to his issues. Oh, this is this is continue as didn't we have?
Let's skip that one.
Sorry, this already is closed. Yeah, okay, that was that's good. That's good to know. I hope this.
Actually, I'm trying to remember. Would we want to keep it open until the spec is modified with the clarifications? I think I closed it because it answered my question, but I'm recognizing now that I might have closed it prematurely.
We can reopen.
Okay. Okay, more details on the function parameters and the continue as. So continue as, I'm looking at the time, so we only have 5 minutes for each.
We don't have to do that continue thing. It's kind of like abstract right now and people are confused with it. So let's move on with it until next time.
Okay, then let's postpone that. And Kevin, since you're on the call, could you give a quick introduction to this issue?
Sure. Yeah, while reading the specification, I spent some more time with it recently. And to me, I had some open questions about what the expected behavior is for runtimes regarding how to handle passing arguments and how to validate inputs, specifically for these open API functions. And I could imagine a few different ways of doing it. And I thought it would help the spec to specify that, because I would argue that it would improve portability so that you could run with the same set of inputs between two different runtimes. So my proposal was that the spec clarifies what how the runtime should, like where it should look for these parameters. There's a few different ways of doing it, I think. One just at the top level of the arguments. Another one, you could group it by where the location would be, like in the headers or body, etc. So it kind of describes like what this issue is, and then we had some discussion later on about why it might be needed.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I wasn't aware. So OpenAPI, is it ambivalent or can it be over specified on where to place a parameter? Can you put it both?
So OpenAPI is really nice in the sense that it tells you exactly where things will go. So if a runtime obviously it has access to the API spec, it will know where these parameters, like basically how to match these parameters to their location. So whether it be header, path params, body. So my argument, or my proposal, I guess, was that you just have a list of arguments and that the runtime would associate those arguments to their proper location when making the API call. I know that it's possible to do that now. I'm just asking that we put it in a spec so that if another implementation says, well, we have arguments and then we have headers and we have the body and then basically arguments inside of that, then it wouldn't be compatible with the runtime that treats them all as a flat list. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, sorry, maybe I'm a bit tired. I'm still not sure. So the current spec uses REST as a type of the function, but it's really open API underneath.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and
so this was the example here. Is the first one is the open API spec, and then below that is the what you could do in the spec. And so this is the way that I interpreted it, was that we could have pet ID and name basically in that arguments list, and that the runtime would be able to associate that to their proper locations.
Okay. Jeremy, could you help me understand, isn't that what we currently have? Or is it just a specification problem that we're missing text to describe that?
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, we can describe currently the arguments as a type object, so you can do whatever you want inside of it. And you can support both these types and also complex types as well, as far as parameter goes. Because sometimes parameter, I think in this it is just the type is strength from the parameters, but sometimes it could be a different type, like an object type that's also defined in the Open API definition. So you can support both in a way. I guess the question is that the keys of these should match the keys of the parameters or the name of the parameters, right?
Right, yeah. And that they be a flat list as opposed to, I mean, I think that's how most people are interpreting it. So I'm just asking for additional wording in the spec maybe. But you could also see how you might have like arguments, and inside of that would be like headers, and then, query params. So this is more just to give some clarification to the runtime implementers that that's the expectation.
That sounds really good. Would you be willing to give it a try and start a a PR on this maybe, and then
Sure.
we can. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Perfect. That would be very nice. And
Yeah.
okay,
You-
cool. So Timmy, I'm afraid we really don't get to the continue as.
No, that's fine. But can I just have one more minute? I just wanted to say,
Of course.
did vote in Charles as a maintainer of the serverless workflow specification. So congratulations, dude. And we're looking for more maintainers. So if everybody's wants to be involved, has been involved, please step in. There is no extra work. You just get to get some bunch of emails that you probably don't care about. But yeah, it does have some sort of status thing. So hopefully we can add some more of you people, contributors and everybody in the future, near future. Hope.
Yes, perfect. And congratulations as well for me, but I mean, it's a pretty obvious thing. So anything else, any other business? No, then please also let me remind you that you can always put stuff on the agenda. I typically sort it out before the day before the meeting. So if you have any things that you want to present, discuss, either ping me or just put it in this document.
Yeah, and sorry, Manuel, and guys, for the new guys, I am annoyed. I'm the guy that always jumps in, right, and forgets things. Sorry, and Manuel is always so prepared. But we also got approved for the crowdfunding through CNCF, and it's not a big deal, and we really need to talk about it. But we did get approved. A lot of different projects, almost all from CNCF that apply can be approved. So it's nothing special for us as far as project goes, but we did get approved for crowdfunding. So hopefully if that gets some traction, we put it on the website and also on our main README. It's just simply for supporting us as we're growing, and this project has been around, but I really think it will help us with supporting the community and giving everything back to you guys that are helping with the project. So that's it. Take a look if you want to read it. It's on bottom of the website and also on the bottom of the main README of the specification.
Yeah, or maybe if you want to convince your company to fund us as a project.
Yeah, we still have to establish everything and deal with that. So yeah, nothing special, but we'll figure it out.
Okay. Thanks. So let me check final roll call. I think I have everybody on the attendee list. Thanks, everybody, and talk to you offline, and see you next week.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
thanks.
So, yeah.